Good evening. It's now 6:30, and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. City Hall will be closed on Monday, May 26th in observance of Memorial Day. The regularly scheduled council meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 27th at 6:30 p.m. due to the holiday. All meetings of the City Council, including workshops, are open to the public and held in council chambers unless otherwise noted. Anyone wishing to attend our council meetings or workshops in person, please contact our city clerk in advance. In other announcements, the City Council will host its annual volunteer recognition event on Monday, June 9th at 5:30 p.m. at Bayfront Park and Charleston Thune Bandstand. Council will also name the 2025 Community Builder at that event. Everyone is welcome to join us, and we encourage anyone who is planning to attend to register in advance with the city clerk. With that, there are no other announcements. I also have one proclamation at the dais this evening, which is recognizing May 18th to 24, 2025 as National Public Works Week. I'll read that from the dais. Whereas Public Works provides services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Victoria. Whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of all Public Works employees who are responsible for planning, improving, and protecting our city's stormwater management system, construction projects, streets, public buildings, parks, trails, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and leaders in Victoria to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, the mayor and council members of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to 24th as National Public Works Week. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda?
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda this evening is open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda, nor an application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. No one has registered in advance to speak at open forum, so if there is anyone who would like to address the council, please step forward at this time. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent agenda items for separate discussion and vote this evening?
Mayor, yes. Staff is going to pull, my computer restarted, so I'm looking for it. I believe it is item 5.6, the 2025 Community Builder.
Got it. Council, are there any items that you would like to see pulled from or anyone in the audience wishing to pull an item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote? Clerk, please record, let the record reflect that item 5.6 has been pulled for further discussion. And council, may I have a motion for the balance of the rest of the consent agenda?
Motion for the rest of the balance of the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to items 5.6, which was removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote. Hardy, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm pulling this just for some transparency purposes here. So the 2025 Community Builder nominations, we did receive 4 nominations. The Internal Review Committee did assess that 2 of the nominations were not eligible per our policy. So that really left 2 nominations, and after review, staff and the internal committee are making a recommendation that the Victoria Business Association be named the 2025 Community Builder. And with that, should council decide to approve that recommendation, I just wanted to take a moment to read the list of current members that was not in your staff report. And I thought that it would be good to share all of the businesses that are part of this current organization and are aiding in the community building work that they're doing. So if council would allow me to do that briefly, I'd like to just read off the list of the current VBA members. Thank you. Aspire Artisan Studios, Blended, Budget Blinds, Cabin Fever Sporting Goods, Charleston Meadows, Cornerstone Insurance Agency, Deer Run Golf Club, The Dog Nanny Boutique, Greenwood Design Build, Guitar Tech Luthier, Hartman Communities, Hartman Companies, Hometown Bank, Just Naturals, JW Real Estate Group, Remax Advantage Plus, Kelly Green Irrigation, Mini Organics, Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative, Nautical Bulls, Old National Bank, Omni Brewing, The Parlor Salon and Spa, Power of Life Alternative and Holistic Health, Regarding Dentistry, Seek Eye Care, Spalding Law Office, Storms and Alpo PLLC, The Blessing House, The Noble Lion, The Wellness Studio, Victoria Auto Sales, Victoria Automotive, Victoria Borough, Victoria Living Magazine, Victoria Rose Floral, Victoria Veterinary Hospital, and Waconia Dodge.
Very good. Thank you so much. Council, with that, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to award the Community Builder Award for 2025 to the Victoria Business Association.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda, which the first item on the regular agenda is item 6.1, which is the Independent Auditor's Report for year-end 2024. Presenting that this evening is Assistant City Manager Tricia Pollock. Ms. Pollock, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I am here tonight to introduce Jackie Hegel, our auditor, who is going to present the audit report for the year ended December 31st, 2020.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Hegel, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. As Tricia said, my name is Jackie Hegel, and I am a partner with LB Carlson. I did want to just quickly comment. I was previously a partner with MMKR for some of you that have been on the council. As of effective January 1st, MMKR merged with LB Carlson, so now we are operating under the LB Carlson name. So something I'm still getting used to as well after 20 years of saying MMKR, trying not to say that and say LB Carlson. But I am here to present the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2024. As we go through the presentation, you're going to see it's all very positive results. A little on the scope and timing of the audit. Our team was out in January. We come out and do what we consider our preliminary audit field work on site for a couple of days. And then we were back in the middle of March where we do our final field work, which is the bulk of the audit procedures. And from there, move on to prepare the audit reports, that annual comprehensive financial report that you have in front of you. And then here tonight to present those results. So starting off, just giving a little background as our role as auditors. As an auditor, my role is to issue an opinion on that basic financial statement, noting that they are fairly presented in accordance with accounting principles. Your city did receive less than $750,000 in federal funding in the current year, and so there is no separate audit of the federal awards. I just wanted to comment on that. That's the threshold that triggers what we call a single audit. So if you ever receive or expend $750,000 or more in federal awards, there's a separate audit of just the federal audit. In the current year, though, the city did spend some of those federal ARPA funds, those American Rescue Plan Act funds that you received a couple years ago. You did spend about $294,000 of those funds in the current year, and then the remaining amount was obligated by December 31st, 2024. As part of our audit, then we also test the internal controls and the compliance over that financial statement audit, as well as with the Minnesota Legal Compliance Manual. So each year, the Office of the State Auditor releases what's called the Minnesota Legal Compliance Manual, and those are the specific statutes that as auditors we're required to test from year to year. So those can change. A lot of times we do see some of the same questions in there as well. For the audit results over that basic financial statement, we issued a unmodified or a clean opinion. That is the opinion you are looking for as part of the audit process there. As part of all of our testing of the internal controls over that financial statement audit, as well as the compliance over that financial statement audit, I had no findings to report in that area. As well as when you're looking at that Minnesota legal compliance audit, no findings to report under that opinion as well. So for the 2024 year, all very good audit opinions, all clean audit opinions, and good results. Moving on then, the first slide here, or moving on to the financial results. The first slide of the financial information here summarizes what we consider the governmental funds and that change in that fund balance when you're looking at all your governmental funds in total. The top portion of that table shows it by classification of fund balance, those non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned dollars. The bottom portion shows it by the major funds of the cities, with all the other funds included in that non-major row. So overall, when you look at the governmental funds, you're seeing an increase in that fund balance of about $235,000. If you look in the top portion of that table, you're seeing your committed fund balance went up about $880,000. Most of that is due to amounts that are committed for that revenue stabilization in the general fund. Offsetting that, you're seeing a decrease in the assigned fund balance. Most of that was in the general fund assignments as well as in that permanent improvement revolving capital project fund, just spending down some of the resources in that fund. Next few slides then focuses specifically on the general fund. This one shows the general fund financial position, that cash balance and the fund balance for the last 5 years. Year-end 2024, that general fund cash balance ended the year about $4.9 million. You're seeing an increase of about $685,000 from the prior year. If you're looking at that blue bar graph, that's the fund balance. Ended the year at about $4.9 million. That was an increase of about $555,000 from the prior year, and that's compared to the City Council did approve a budget expecting a deficit of about $71,000, but ended the year increasing about $555,000. At year-end, December 31st, the unassigned fund balance in that general fund was approximately 31% of the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures, and that is in line with the city's fund balance policy of a minimum unassigned of 30%. This graph here shows the general fund revenue of the city, budget to actual, by the various categories. Overall, the general fund revenues were about $9.4 million. When you're comparing that to budget, they ended the year about $1.3 million over budget. Most of that budget variance is in that license and permits, as well as the charges for services. Both of those just more than budget, with more building activity than initially expected in the budget. When you're comparing current year to prior year, you saw an increase in your revenues of about $970,000. You're seeing an increase in property tax revenues of about $500,000, as well as an increase in charges for services of about $260,000. Most of that charges for services related with building activity throughout the city.
Excuse me.
Similar bar graph here then, just of the general fund expenditures. Overall, the general fund expenditures were just under $6.4 million for the year. That was about $285,000 less than the budget. When you're looking at that budget variance, your general government function was under budget about $180,000. That was spread across all the various departments within the general government function. You also saw your culture and recreation under budget about 150,000, as well as public works coming in under budget. When you're looking general fund expenditures, current year to prior year, you're seeing an increase in those expenditures of about 530,000. Most of that was in that public safety function, specifically in the police department with adding a full-time community service officer in 2024, as well as a vehicle purchase. You also saw spending in the general government increasing with some added positions in that function as well. But overall, the general fund did end the year where you were able to transfer out just over $1 million, more than was budgeted for the capital projects and equipment needs, in accordance with that fund balance policy that the city does have. Moving on then, this summarizes the enterprise funds and the summary of the changes in the net position of those funds. So these are those specific business type, those utility operations. Once again, the top portion of this table shows it by classification of net position. The bottom portion shows it by each of the individual enterprise funds. So overall, you saw your enterprise funds increase about 2.1 million. If you're looking at the top portion of that table, that net investment in capital assets is decreasing just due to more depreciation in the current year from utility infrastructure assets that have been added in previous years. That unrestricted net position is increasing just due to the positive operating results throughout the city enterprise funds. If you're looking at the bottom portion, you can see each of those funds. The net position increased in both the water fund, the sewer fund, and had a slight decrease of about 40,000 in that stormwater management fund. I have a graph showing the operations for each of the last 5 years, specific with each enterprise fund. This first one starts with the water fund. You can see very positive operations for each of the last 5 years. This fund specifically ended the year with an increase in net position of about 1.7 million. Your operating revenue, which is that blue bar graph, for 2024 saw a decrease in operating revenue. That is directly related to consumption. So the city saw a decrease in consumption in the water operations for 2024. Your operating expenses, that blue bar or the yellow bar graph, decreased about 130,000. That was mainly in materials and supplies. But overall, ended the year with an operating income, that green bar graph, of about 406,000. If you exclude depreciation, you're seeing that red line that shows the income before depreciation of about 1.2 million. So overall, very positive operations for the 2024 year. This next graph shows the sewer fund operations for the last 5 years. This fund saw an increase in net position of just under 500,000 for the year. You saw your operating revenues in this fund increase about 180,000. Most of that was just due to an approved rate increase in that sewer fund. You also saw your operating expenses increase about 100,000. Most of that was directly related to the increased disposal charges that you are being charged. Overall, the operating income loss, that green line, you're seeing a loss of about 400,000. That if you exclude depreciation, the red line then shows operating income of about 190,000 when you exclude that depreciation. And the last enterprise fund, the stormwater management fund, ended the year with a slight decrease in net position of about 40,000. Overall, your operating revenues, you saw an increase. That is due to a rate increase in 2024. When you're looking at your expenses, you saw a more significant increase, about 240,000. A couple items there when you're looking at your operating expenses. You had personnel service costs went up. You had an added position in 2024 compared to 23. Your professional service expenses also increased, just more pond maintenance cost in the current year compared to previous year. If you're looking at that green line, had operating loss of about 135,000. When you exclude that depreciation, you're seeing operating income of about 172,000. And then the last table I have here summarizes what we call the government-wide financial statements. So this is that second reporting layer in that ACFR that you have, where it includes all the funds of the city and rolls it into what's called the government-wide financial statements. They're the full accrual financials. So it shows all the capital asset activity as well as any long-term liabilities, so any bonds, any debt, any pension liabilities the city has, and gives a snapshot at year end. So overall, that government-wide statement of net position, you're seeing an increase of about 5.6 million in the net position. The top portion of that is your governmental activities. You're seeing an increase of about 3.4 million. Most of that in that net investment in capital assets, and that's just due to the continued investment in infrastructure throughout the city. And then the bottom portion is those business type activities that we just previously discussed, but mostly due to the positive operating results for the 2024 year. So with that, I can open it up if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hego. Council, questions for Ms. Hego?
I have one. As a rookie, I get to ask some questions sometimes that aren't maybe totally appropriate, but you do a lot of assessments like this. Are there one or two things that we could do better?
Well, I'll say on the flip side, it's not common to not see findings. So to not have findings is very good, but to consistently not have them is good. And I know I'm speaking from the opposite side, but that's not something that we commonly see when we go from audit to audit. I will say you also are the very first audit being presented, so I don't really have a lot of comparisons to compare to or anything.
Fair enough.
But you are, your finance staff does get everything reconciled and tied out early, which is very positive to be presenting early in May.
Fair to say Tricia's doing a great job with the finances for the city.
She is.
Thank you.
All right. Council, other questions, comments?
I'd only make a comment that, that Trish and Abby, by the report that's put in front of us, continue to do a fine job. I mean, I think that they also, it shows the benefit of their continuing education and the certifications that Trish goes through each and every year, just makes the city of Victoria's financial performance and being able to record it and have a clean audit, something that just lends trust and transparency to the citizens of our community. And her hard work is on display right here. This proves that our city leadership is picking good people to do the city's business. So thanks for that, Trish.
Thank you.
Very good, well said. All right.
And thanks, Abby.
Good supporting position right there. All right. Anything else? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion, please.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept the audit report.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Ms. Siegel.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, item 6.2, is to review a petition we received from residents regarding street improvements for 80th Street. And presenting that this evening is our city engineer, Ms. Kara Guerin. Ms. Guerin, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I am going to just need a minute to pivot
Sure.
because I did not load my pictures ahead of time. But included in your packet tonight is a request from property owners for an improvement to 80th Street. So 80th Street is a street located off of Bavaria Road on the east side of Victoria. And here is a map of the street. I can make things work today. So 80th Street is located off of Bavaria, as I just finished saying. And we did receive a petition signed by 7 of the 10 property owners on 80th Street, with the 10th property owner being Holy Family, actually owns a portion of property adjacent to 80th Street, interestingly enough. And what precipitated the signing of this petition was just questions and concerns from the residents who live on that street relating to the condition of the pavement. So I do have some photos here too that hopefully will cooperate and open. But the pavement is in pretty poor condition. What I noted in the staff report is somewhat of some interesting history. Around the late 90s, I think the specific record that we found was from 1996. The residents who lived on the cul-de-sac actually requested permission from the city to complete a bituminous overlay of the gravel road that existed back in the late 90s for that roadway. So they did pay to overlay their street, and the council did allow that back in the 90s. And so the road was simply shaped and paved, and as you can see from the photos, it doesn't have curb and gutter on it, and so doesn't have a storm sewer system. And also, because it was a gravel road that was paved, it doesn't have our city standard section underneath it that we build all of our new roads and all of our reconstructed roads with. So that, I didn't bring a picture of it, but that would be our sand section that's underneath all of our roads, and drain tile, and class 5, and pavement and curb and gutter. The neighborhood also does not have city water currently. It is available at the intersection of 80th Street and Bavaria, but none of the homes are connected to city water. We did connect the houses to city sewer in 2002, but the sewer is located in their backyards, interestingly enough. That is how they were connected. In 2009, so I'll back up a little bit. In 2004, we embarked on a plan to reconstruct all of the streets in the city that weren't meeting city standard. So as we were working through the process of studying and evaluating all of the streets, this particular street came up for improvement in the city's capital improvement plan. So we did complete a feasibility study in 2009 and presented the findings of that study to the neighborhood. And at the time, the neighbors were not supportive of moving forward with the project. At that time, the pavement was probably about 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, if I know how to do math. And so even though at the time we were already starting to see some signs of distress to the pavement, the residents did not want to have to pay for an improvement after they had just paid in 1996 or so to do the overlay. So the council at that time agreed to not proceed with the improvement and essentially kicked the neighborhood to the back of the capital improvement plan. And really repeatedly, we've just been kind of kicking the project out in the CIP. We have completed 2 rounds of maintenance, which would be consistent with our typical maintenance schedule. We did a crack seal and seal coat. I think the staff report says 2010 and 2017, if I remember correctly, those years. But really with the pavement coming up on 20 years old, the pavement itself is beyond its useful life, and the types of pavement failure we're seeing here is indicative of subgrade failure. So the road does need to be fully reconstructed to our new city standards. So the Public Works, Ryan, our Public Works Superintendent, has been talking with the folks in this neighborhood and worked with them because they were asking, how do we make this project actually happen? And so he worked with them and talked through what the petition process would look like, because they really want to understand what the costs would be. Certainly, as with all of these projects, once they understand the costs, they may feel differently about seeing the street improved, but that would be the next step in the process for how these projects work. This project is actually scheduled in the capital improvement plan for 2026 currently. So petition or not, our process for moving a project forward would be to complete a feasibility study that would need to be authorized by the city council. You have a petition Nope, you have a resolution included in your packet to authorize that feasibility study. If we didn't have that petition, the resolution would be worded slightly differently. But what would happen next is we would complete the feasibility study to determine the costs of the recommended improvements. That would include evaluating the cost to extend city water to the neighborhood. We would present the findings to the neighborhood first, is our typical process, prior to bringing them back to the city council, so we're able to share with you all what we hear in the neighborhood meeting. And then should the council elect to move forward the process from there, there would be a public hearing where you would formally hear from the residents before deciding if a project were to move forward. Also in that neighborhood meeting, we would be describing the entire public improvement process to the neighbors, because we've been getting some questions about how the process works and how assessments are paid and all those sorts of questions. We would cover that for those folks in a neighborhood meeting format as well. And so I think that is all I have to cover, but happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Kara, if, you know, we have this capital improvement plan, all our streets are getting redone and brought up to standard. The neighborhood has petitioned us to do that. Could they say, we don't want our street done?
So
And we would be okay with that?
that would be a council decision. So in any case of these 429 projects, you hold a public hearing, and then the council gets to make a decision about whether or not a project moves forward. This pavement condition is certainly beyond its useful life, so it will become increasingly difficult for Public Works to maintain it. When you start to see these types of failures, there's only so much pothole patching and like thin overlay type work that the Public Works Department can do to keep it band-aided together. So certainly I wouldn't recommend that we continue to defer it for much longer. But the timing of when a project is completed is at the council's discretion.
Very good. And you said there is no city water to this neighborhood. Have neighbors indicated they would like that?
I have not had that conversation with them at all. And certainly this previous city councils have elected to not extend water to neighborhoods when the residents have not had that interest. There's a couple of neighborhoods up at the north part of the city who don't have them. I should note that in the last few years within the existing part of the city, we've seen a lot more people elect to connect where water has been available. So that's information we'll share with these folks. It really comes down to what the age and condition of their wells are to determine. It's expensive to connect to city water, so we lay out, what the fees are and what the assessment amounts would be. For connecting to city water under the city's assessment policy, that is 100% assessed to the property owners. So the questions we've been getting are about the road, not about the water, but because we'd be reconstructing the road, that's the most cost-effective time to install water would be when the road's excavated, obviously, so.
So we would install that utility underneath the road, and then residents could connect up to it as they would like to.
Correct. So that has been the city's policy. We would put in a service connection for each home, but the city doesn't currently mandate connection, but they would have to pay that assessment. So, but yeah, it's been the city's policy that homeowners can choose when to hook up to it. So typically what we've seen is that residents don't connect until they're at a point where they have to do major rehab to their well, and then that's when they decide it's more cost
It costs
effective.
them from the road to their home.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Council, questions?
This would have come to us next year anyway without the petition, correct?
Correct, unless for budgetary reasons, when you went through the budget, you made decisions to shift it. Certainly, once you have the feasibility results back and hear from the residents, you could conclude to not complete the project next year. It is, as I noted, it's the council's discretion to move forward with the feasibility study. It's the council's discretion to when to do a project, so.
To
Gotcha.
put it in summary, we've been petitioned. We're going to use this petition opportunity to advance what we would otherwise do in 2026, to look at doing it now. If we had let it go to 2026, then it's possible that council could look at it and say, we don't want to make that decision to improve this now. I suspect strongly that your professional opinion would be a recommendation to the council to consider this project at that time and maybe choose another project to delay should we not have the capacity to do that. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I do think that the timing of the feasibility study is well-timed because we'll have the costs. And by the time, if we were to move forward with it, we could complete the design over the winter and go out for bids early in the year and construct the improvements in 2026. When the northbound roads are under construction, I think it would be better to be doing this improvement when the northbound roads for the Highway 5 project are closed versus when all of Highway 5 is closed, just from access to materials when you're, in terms of getting bids for the project. I think it would be better to do it in 26 and 27. But by the time you have the feasibility study results, we'll also have pretty clear-cut costs for the Highway 5 project for the city. And so you'll have a much better picture of your budget scenario for the transportation improvements. So I think it actually will be a benefit to have the feasibility numbers in conjunction with the transportation project, so Trish can plug those all into the budget at once, and you can make a decision with more information. Because right now I don't have updated project costs to, we have a number plugged into the CIP that isn't based on actual projected costs for the neighborhood, where this would give us a detailed cost estimate, so you could plug that into the budget to help you make decisions.
So this wouldn't get done this construction year?
No,
The
correct,
feasibility would kick off, though,
Yeah.
correct.
initially. in
Yes,
25.
under no scenario would you be constructing this project in 2026 because it's already May.
In this year?
Sorry, 2025. Thank you. It's been a long day.
This is probably,
Always living in the future.
sorry, this is probably a Bob question, and it's the nefarious side of me coming out, but is there a way that by filing the petition, the street owners have more responsibility or more power than if it just came up on a CIP?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I can't think of a way that would be true. I guess maybe in a petition, you could craft the scope of what you're petitioning for different than the city might have crafted it. I suppose that would be a way residents could try to have some influence that they wouldn't otherwise have. But the fact of the matter is, if you just do this in the normal course, you just wait till 2026, as Kara has said, as the engineer said, you would do a feasibility study on a project that you think is appropriate, and then you'd have a public hearing when the residents would have the same right to come and say, no, don't do that project, take this out, add this. So, I mean, I think the answer is no, there's no real meaningful difference.
Thank you. I couldn't think of one, but it just popped into my
Then to clarify, we wouldn't necessarily have to accept the petition, correct?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, the fact of the matter is, the city doesn't have to proceed with any public improvement projects, whether they're petitioned for or not. Just as when you get to the feasibility stage, you get a feasibility report that includes some likely costs to the residents. The residents show up at the hearing and say, we don't want you to proceed with this project now because we've seen the feasibility report. The ball is still in your court. There is a little bit of a different voting threshold depending on whether it's petitioned for or not, but ultimately those decisions, whether to go feasibility study or not, and then whether to order the improvement or not after you get the feasibility study, those are all purely council decisions.
Council,
Thank you, Council.
other questions?
Is the feasibility study something we can handle within our current budget, or is it something that's kind of popped up, or?
Yeah, Ms. Hardy, please.
Mayor, Councilmember Pedersen, members of the council. We don't have a specific line item budgeted for the feasibility study. What we would do is take those funds from our long-term street maintenance fund, which we do have fund balance in, so that is something that we would be able to fund this year.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
And I don't have a pretty little slide.
I have it here.
Okay.
Motion to approve a resolution declaring adequacy of petition and ordering preparation of a feasibility report for the 80th Street improvements.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no more items on our regular agenda this evening, so we'll move to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, you're up first.
Mayor and council, I guess I just want to say we had a meeting prior to this meeting session. I just want to thank you for coming to that really well informed and questions and good.
Thank you. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff? All right, anything from council members this evening? I just have one little thing to say. New park signs are going up in our parks. If you have not seen them yet, they are beautiful. Take a look, watch for them coming soon to your neighborhood if they are not there yet. They are absolutely beautiful. With that, we have no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.